Hi, so in this video I'm going to walk you through how to use P0 to get just-in-time access to an RDS Postgres database. So to start out with, I'll run some commands I've had previously, which just try to log me into that database. And you'll see that for my user, I'm getting a password authentication failed error. This is because I have no standing access to this database. So this is a database that in general, I don't have any sort of access to without asking for permission. So what I can do is I can hop over to P0, and in the P0 tool, I can click on Request Access. I'll select Postgres. I'll choose a role as my access type. And then the role that I'm going to get is a stats reader. Okay, and then I have to give a reason, so I'll just say I'm diagnosing slow queries. And I pick how long I'll need the access for. This should take about an hour, so I'll request that. Now in general, this request will be routed to a manager or the owner of this particular database. That's all determined by the routing rules that you've set up within P0. But in this case, I can approve my own request. So I'll approve it, and here the approver can set any amount of time that they want to approve it for, regardless of what's requested. But in this case, I'll stick with the hour that I've requested. And now you can see up here that the request has been approved. So I'll hop back over into my console. And at this point, it'll depend a little bit on what setup you have for logging into AWS, but in almost all cases, you're going to want to run some variant of AWS configure. So checking back in, I ran AWS configure SSO, and I got a profile out of that. So I'll just add that at the end of the command that I was running earlier to set my Postgres password. And then I'll try to connect again to the database. And I've just added on here at the end the DB name, so I connect to the right database. Okay, and now you can see, whereas before I was getting that authentication error, that password error, here I've connected just fine to the database. And I can run this command, which will show me all my tables and how many rows are in them. And you can see here I just have the one table, and it doesn't have any rows in it. And the reason that I'm able to run this command is because it's on one of the PG stat tables, which the role that I requested, that stats read all, is able to access. But now if I go and try to read the table in the database, the actual data in the table, so this might be customer data, you'll see that I get permission denied. And that's because that's not part of the role that I requested from P0. So I'm only able to access those things that I've explicitly requested. And then the last thing we'll quickly look at is that if I select my current user, you'll see that it is my name that I've logged into. So if you have any sort of session recording enabled or do any auditing after the fact, any actions that I take will be directly tied to my user and not any sort of shared credential. So what I've shown here is that using P0, we can go from a database where we have no standing access, and with no shared credentials, no static credentials, I can do a least privilege request, and that gives me just those permissions that I need to do exactly the task that I'm trying to do.